How you doing, guys? This is Eric from RuleTheWasteland.com, BuyThermite.com. Today's video is about steel-cased ammo and is it really bad to use it in your guns? And it's funny when I point this thing at the screen, it reminds me that every time I see a video and I'm such a good adherence, it's so nailed in my brain, like the gun safety rules, that anytime I see someone pointing a gun at the camera, even I'm like, whoa, and just instinctively I'm like, worried about getting flagged. Anyways, that's probably the attitude you should have regarding guns. It should be almost instinctual, your adherence to the safety standards. With that being said, there's nothing wrong with pointing your gun at the camera when there's no one behind it. This is just, it's a cleared gun. It's pointed at a camera that's not just mounted on a stand. So anyways, like I said, we're talking about steel cased versus brass casing. And is it actually bad to shoot the steel case stuff in your gun? Now, the main reason this comes up all the time is because steel casing is much cheaper to buy. If you were to buy 1,000 rounds of 223 ammo like this, it's probably going to cost you about $100 less than getting 1,000 brass case rounds, maybe even cheaper. So there is a lot of reason why people would want to buy the steel case instead of the brass case. And people who hear a lot on the forums and whatnot about steel case being bad for your guns in one way or another. So the short answer for me is obviously yes, you can shoot it in your gun. You're not being some sort of bad gun owner or destroying your firearm. You know what I mean? It's not nothing like that. There's a lot of ammo snobs and just gun snobs in general out there. You're not being dumb or some kind of weird, Philistine by shooting steel case stuff through your weapon. So if you want it, if you just want to pay less, stock up more ammo that way, or just shoot more that way, it's fine. But there are some things you need to know, some considerations that go into making that decision. Number one is that you can't reload steel cased ammo. So if you're at all interested in reloading, you're going to need to get brass. Speaking of which, and that's related, some places won't let you shoot steel case ammo because they like to just scoop up all the brass so they can sell it or reload it later, and they don't want to have to pick out steel or aluminum cased ammo or anything that's not brass, so they will not let you use it there. But some ranges will, so it's good to know that ahead of time. If you're going to be shooting it at the range, know whether or not they allow it before spending the money on it, because you're not going to save money if you buy ammo that you can't shoot. Now, the other question is that a lot of people have is, oh, is it bad for my gun? If I have something like an AR-15, is it going to be rough on the extractor or dirty or something along those lines? Now, there's only 3 or 4, I think, complaints that people have against the steel-cased ammo. One is that you can't reload it, and that's legitimate if you're into reloading. If you don't reload, it's not a concern. The other one is that the steel is a harder metal, so it's rougher on your gun components, extractors, things like that, than a brass case ammo. The other complaint is that they're dirtier, and there could be a couple reasons for that, but one of the explanations I've heard is that because the brass expands more quickly and more readily than steel, it closes the chamber off more completely, whereas the steel just barely opens enough because it's not as malleable a metal, and then more powder gets by it, whatever. Or it could just be because it's cheaper ammo, there's less quality control, and it's dirtier in that sense. Hard to tell. But the other one would be any lacquer coating that comes on some steel cases. Isn't specifically a problem with steel, but the steel coating or the steel ammo will sometimes have a lacquer or polymer coating. And I have heard about people saying that shooting too much of it causes it to like melt off the chamber, but then coagulate inside the gun somewhere, not in huge amounts, but it makes it either dirty or it's hard to remove without using high temperatures and can cause more errors in the future, things like that. I don't have a lot of knowledge about that particular problem, but I do know that most of the stuff that you get nowadays that's steel case, like the TulAmmo, the Wolf, it's not going to be polymer coated or lacquer coated anyway, so it's not a big concern. And I'm not sure why they did that. Maybe it was to protect the components from the rougher metal. I don't know. I'll look up and try to put an annotation because I honestly don't know why they coated the steel. So as long as you're avoiding corrosive ammunition, which has nothing to do with the casing, but older ammunitions would use different types of propellant in the bullet, and some of it would cause a lot of damage to your weapon if you didn't clean it instantly, or even if you did, it could be corrosive. So now you almost always see non-corrosive on there on most ammunition. So as long as you get that kind, the steel casing's not a big deal. Save your money, If you're not going to be reloading, I don't find a big issue with it. If over time it does wear down your gun a little bit because of the harder metal or a little bit dirtier, the components you'll end up replacing, it would take so many rounds. You know, if you're shooting 10,000, 20,000, 50,000 rounds probably before you're wearing out a lot of these components, then the money you've saved by spending, you know, $100 less per thousand or something like that is going to pay for those components and then some probably. And if you're really worried about it, then just get the brass. You know, it's not that big a deal. It's better than worrying about it, and especially if you don't shoot all that much. The little bit extra is not going to make that big of a difference. Or if you just want to shoot brass on a regular basis and use the cheaper ammo to stock up for a shit hit the fan scenario just in case, then that's an option too. But bottom line is, it's not something you really have to worry about. You're not being some kind of rube or total gun newbie if you use steel ammo. It's cheaper, and most weapons is not going to be a problem. If you have particularly finicky weapons, maybe it will have cycling issues, but it's hard to even tell if that's because of the casing or if it's just because of a lower quality control in general. Every ammunition you buy is going to have some kind of failure rate, whether it's 1 out of a million or 1 out of 100. Obviously, you want it to be as low as possible, but I have had barely any noticeable difference with the modern Tull and Wolf ammo, and I don't think you'll have any problems either. So it's not something that I think you need to avoid, especially if you're trying to be money conscious. Just go ahead and get what you can afford. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll talk to you later.